Now, I would request Shri Sunil Parikh from Ahmedabad to come and deliver his thoughts.
पूज्य दादा भगवान, पूज्य कनु दादा श्री, पूजनीय आप्तपुत्रस, our patron Vasant Bhai, conference chairman Dr. S.R. Bhatt, fellow speakers, distinguished delegates, able team at HSRC, and distinguished scholars. By way of introduction, the following is an extract from the Science of Liberation and Vyavhar Vignan as experienced by Pujya Dada Bhagwan following his enlightenment while sitting on a bench in Surat railway station in 1958. The way to liberation and the way to conduct our life, both aspects have been shared with tens of thousands of Mahatmas who are all reaping benefit of this direct spiritual experiential knowledge today. So let me begin. Man has since time immemorial felt a deep urge to understand the universe and his place in it. His sincere search has led him to many findings, many views, and deeper philosophical research. Much has been written, expostulated, and shared, but today the world is in a different crisis, a deep crisis of personal faith. People seem to have drifted away, gone away from the classical religion and its preachings to a more basic rational humanism with man at its center, but still feeling alone and lonely. And in a wider perspective, man has also become much more sensual and is leading a life governed by his physical senses, perhaps stemming from a feeling of being lost, a sense of rootlessness, a sense of disconnectedness at an umbilical level from the cosmos around him. In today's time, which is the fifth phase of the descending cycle in the Kal Chakra, man finds it very difficult to find true spiritual path that leads him to happiness, since most avenues are regarded as closed. So he begins to rely for his happiness more and more on material things and the pleasures of his senses. He has also become more egoistic. His pursuits follow his passions today. His measures of success are often also physical and egoism based. Happiness has become just a little more than mere pleasure today. Dada has also said that in today's Kali Yuga, happiness is just an interval between two places or two episodes of unhappiness. Essentially, friends, lack of happiness arises out of one's inability to accept and enjoys one's circumstances and relationships. The gap between the reality of one's life and one's expectations from its life is the seed of unhappiness. One's expectations are based on one's beliefs. These beliefs are not permanent and they often change, and even the pleasure one derives from them is often temporary, short-lived, and definitely unstable. Personal beliefs, on the other hand, are also changing today. In this context, Dada Bhagwan science calls such pleasure or happiness as relative happiness to distinguish it from real happiness, which is permanent and is not subject or people dependent. Dada's plain speaking language says that satisfaction, happiness, and contentment are all based on our own personal beliefs. How are beliefs created? We live in a world of multiple material goods and people around us, and we need to identify them individually and differentiate them on some basis. And this leads us to begin to form opinions in the beginning. Such opinions of classification as useful or wasteful, good or bad, get hardened over time. And friends, remember, psychologists call it reinforcement behavior, which says that the original opinion encourages us to see things in a particular way rather than objectively. A psychological predisposition often called prejudice. These hardened opinions then become beliefs, and these then become our lighthouses. In fact, our basic standards that govern us and help us to take decisions and steer our ship in the uncertain waters of today's life's journey. Family life greatly contributes to our fundamental development of core values and opinions which become our moral compass and provide us a blueprint for personally managing our circumstances and relationship as we go through in life. So I want to share with you two examples about belief-based happiness. First, there are two friends and they order a pizza. One of them enjoys it thoroughly and the other one does not. Happiness, therefore, is not an intrinsic property of the pizza since the two differ in their experience of it. Happiness of the first person from eating a delicious pizza is based on his likes and his opinion about it. Whereas the second person's personal likes and experiences and opinions about the taste is totally opposite. Or take, for example, the purchase of an expensive Mercedes-Benz car. It's a great source of happiness for an upcoming professional, a matter of great social and financial standing that it conveys to his peers. But when his neighbor acquires a beautiful Ferrari and calls everyone to see it, the first experience of great joy begins to dim in front of the new development. Happiness changes because of comparison and leads to jealousy. Once again, the belief changes that the Ferrari brings greater status and therefore greater happiness. It's all about our experiences, our opinions, our beliefs. The functional requirement of the product itself, which is the car, is now completely out of the new equation of societal prestige and pleasure. Both would have done the job of carrying person from place A to place B. So the important thing to realize is circumstances will keep changing. It is their defining characteristic. It is their basic nature is to keep changing. And personal expectations too continue to change. So you see a world where you have external circumstances are changing and you see your own expectations are changing continuously. And the gap between the two is what we call unhappiness. And that also becomes uncertain with time and becomes temporary. When things don't change exactly according to what one's expectation is about something, it causes unhappiness, which then often leads us to a whole set of negativity for the associated people and the circumstances. And this has been our day-to-day story and regular experience. So what are our options in dealing with unhappiness? All the complex issue of failures, personal losses in the family, relationship issues, financial problems, unsatisfied and overflowing desires, diseases, death, old age, sorrow, and pain. There is a huge amount of current thinking on this issue available on a click of a button on Google from well-meaning people and gurus today. The solution lies in understanding that external circumstances are not in our control and must be taken as what they are. This causes us unhappiness and creates conflicts. This understanding takes us into the next level, and that is, unhappiness is our reaction within ourselves in response to the way we feel about our external relationships and sour circumstances. So many alternative approaches by many others teach us the value of managing our internal reaction and processes much better based on how the antaskaran behaves. Some prescribe diktats for the masses, some provide alternate explanations to quiet the burning mind, some take you to find peace in the scriptures, and some revisit the word of the Lord, and some take you to deeper inside in the form of many types of meditations, chanting, prayers, songs, group or single therapy sessions, and some teach us the value of living in the present instead of dwelling in the past, which causes us pain, and the future, which is the source of anxiety. Some, which is a very popular today, also follow Vipassana, meditation of Buddhism, which helps us to actually experience the transient nature of our responses from within. It's rising and it's ebbing away, helping us to focus on what is going on with what is called full mindfulness. After all, the motivation of Siddhartha in seeking the truth and thus becoming Buddha was to find a final cure for the pain and suffering of human life and its predicament with the human desire, tanha, as its root. Psychotherapy also hails the fact that even the scriptures have espoused for a very long time, and that is the negative emotion of anger, hatred, jealousy, and violence, lust and attachment, do more damage inside us even before they are expressed and perceived and shared with the external cause. Health, balance, and moderation, rationality all become temporarily helpless against the free reign of these emotions at their peak and cause a lot of pain to both yourself, your friends, and your families. Back to Dada's science. Dada said that one of the biggest source of internal tension today is the almost universal absence of the oneness of what we think, what we speak, and what we act. Man vachan kaya ni ekagrata na loss thavathi. There is always a continuous internal tension which is in the situation in modern man. He also said that there are three forms of unhappiness that human beings suffer from. These are Adi, Vyadhi, and Upadhi. Adi is the mental uneasiness, that is when we sit and keep worrying all day. Vyadhi is associated with the physical body and pain and discomfort, for example, a headache or a stomachache. And Upadhi is something that comes from outside and disturbs us. That is, for example, if someone knocks you down in an accident. The goal is to free ourselves of these three scorching fires, Trividtap, by being in constant samadhi. It is interesting that in today's world, even the West, in a holistic way of speaking, have now recognized the need for actually developing measures for measuring and quantification of happiness. And there are two measures that have come in the world for measurement of happiness. One is the Gross Happiness Index, where Bhutan, Sikkim, and these type of countries are really doing well. And the other one, which is by the United Nations, when they first produced the first World Happiness Report in April 2012. And now it has been institutionalized, and the last report came out in the month of February. And that lays out a good way to measure and quantify about happiness. What these reports basically do is that they measure Adi and Vyadhi in society. And they have developed indices for measuring these. And therefore, they measure countries. And the four top countries in the world are the three Nordic countries, the Scandinavian countries, followed by Switzerland. America was number 3 in 2012, in spite of being the richest and the biggest economy, but is now come down to the place of 19th. And the reason in the index that they say is it has come down is because of lack of social support, increased corruption, and loss of trust in a society. The principal reasons for variation of happiness between countries and within countries are essentially three. The first is mental health, the second is physical health, and the third is the issues affecting personal relationships in society. And these three constitute the major area. And if you have to look at one single reason, which is the principal source of unhappiness in the world today, that is Adi, which is mental worry and mental problems. And this is not directly linked to lack of money, and there is no correlationship with poverty and lack of health. So which means even when you have prosperity, you have mental health issues. This science of liberation of Dada gives an example of the constant feeling of insecurity that one experiences when one is living in someone else's house, compared to the total peace that you enjoy when you are living in your own house. The body assembly of Sunil, that is mind, speech, and body, is an object that is to be seen as totally separate from my own real self. This real self is only a seer and knower of all that Sunil is experiencing. This act of knowing and seeing is totally neutral and remains steady, while the experiences of Sunil may be that of happiness or sadness. The real self-state of happiness is not dependent on the condition of Sunil's being, his relationships, or his circumstances, and therefore progressively takes us on to a stage of experiencing a permanent state of inner joy, which is called Ananda. Further, from the perspective of Dada's science, the understanding is that our current life and circumstances are the direct result of whatever has been shaped by us in our earlier lives. It also explains how exactly is the blueprint of our future life is being created in our present life by us today. It also explains in detail how this blueprint then gets transmitted from one life to another life, and then it explains how exactly does this blueprint that we have created for ourselves pans out in the next birth. This is the law of karma. So the point to understand for happiness is that the cause of all my life's relationship issues and unhappy circumstances is that it is only I who is wholly and solely responsible for whatever is happening to me in my life. I will repeat. It is only I who is wholly and solely responsible for whatever that is happening to me in my life. This is a very humbling and an ennobling realization. This life, therefore, is a direct consequence of my intents of bhav karma of my previous birth, very often created out of ignorance in their consequences for the next life. Once the process is understood, the mind then begins to accept things as they are. The desire to change our relationships and circumstances, that burning desire gets milder and milder, and one is able to adjust much more easily. One of the consequences of understanding this transactional nature of this universe is that all the individuals in our relationships now become innocent. They are just messengers delivering my own dues of happiness and unhappiness as the time goes on. So, this is the birth of what we call Nirdosh Drishti. It is when everyone we regard as innocent in our eyes. It is a very big darshan that opens out and leads us to happiness in everyday life in ways that only we can experience it if you get onto this path. And this is the experience of all our Mahatmas who live in Samadhi with this. There are other similar very powerful aphorisms emanating as a consequence of understanding that capture the essence of this teaching and make it very easy and useful to apply in one's daily life. These are very practical and effective and actually lead us to reduction and elimination of conflicts in our life, leading us to tranquility in day-to-day living. So many Mahatmas are enjoying this. Normally we regard happiness as our goal, but in case of our Mahatmas, we are living with happiness. We are not living for happiness. I repeat, there is a very big distinction. We are living with happiness and we are not living for happiness. So the 4 key aphorisms for happiness, and these are really keys that Professor Lee also shared one of them, and there were other speakers also, that actually give you a methodology of simply solving the puzzle in life. And this leads to a better day-to-day living, and then also opens the gate and makes us purer and gets us ready for final liberation. And the 4 of these aphorisms are, number 1, in Gujarati it says, Bhogve teni bhool. Translated it means, one who suffers is at fault. This, as we have seen, is a direct consequence of the basic understanding of what is happening in this world around us. Each one of us is wholly and solely responsible for whatever is happening to each one of us. Second aphorism, Athalaman Talo, translated means avoid clashes. For example, if we have invited someone to a family function and then we get left out from the invitation list when that family has a function, he forgets to call us. No reciprocal expectations are to be exercised. If one is hurt, it means that one has seen the other as an independent doer of what he is doing. But if you see him as a messenger of delivering pain to you, then he remains innocent and you collect your pain and be on your way. The important message is, do not build new negativity and karmas while dealing with such typical situations arising out of your past in your present life. This is the key to success and to better living. Avoid the seeds of conflict altogether. The third aphorism is Banyu te nyay, which means whatever has happened is natural justice. It is wise, therefore, not to apply human laws, laws of the courts, or laws based on mutual reciprocity in our relationships. It's a grand acceptance of things as they are, because that is regarded as the fundamental truth. Things happen only because of earlier causes, and nature makes no mistake. It is 100% perfect. The fourth aphorism that takes us to happiness and to liberation is a positive drashti, which means in every circumstances of our life, there is always a choice as to how you see it, positively or negatively. For example, if your little finger gets cut, do you lament the fact that your finger has been cut? Or are you happy that you still have 19 more fingers and that you are functionally absolutely okay? Even at the level of the intellect, such positive views create an aura of happiness and do not allow you to breed and suffer during this whole science. It is important to understand that whatever relative happiness is in a subtler way. There are other insights and inspirational wisdom under the subjects of principles of freedom through apology, the science of karma, the science of 9 essential universal truths of all religions of the world, which is available in the bookstall behind, the science of money. Where does money go? Where does money rest? And what is the science behind money? And more about doubt and mistrust. Finally, in the end, these life after life of unending birth and death, constant struggles, and the continuous rise and ebbs of one's ever-changing circumstances makes us ache deep within. It's suffocating, and there is a thirst, a renewed desire to step out of this suffocating, perennial, philosophically meaningless cycles of life and death. And this indeed is the beginning of the search for the final personal salvation of man. I bow in obeisance to Dada Bhagwan for his krupa to help me to realize that I am not a human being experiencing spiritual life today, but in fact I am a spiritual being experiencing a human life. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you very much, Professor Parekh.